Welcome to Revisit Books podcast, where we turn books into bite-sized wisdom you can use every day. Today we're looking into, well, the future of our own biology, really. Exploring a fascinating argument that aging and decline, maybe they're not inevitable after all. We are breaking down Dave Asprey's work, Superhuman, unlocking youthful vitality and peak performance at any age.
Yeah, it was a really interesting perspective. This material basically throws out the common idea that getting older just means falling apart.
Hmm.
Asprey looks at aging differently, not as some unavoidable decay, but more like a set of engineering problems. Problems that he believes science and specific actions can actually solve, maybe even reverse.
That framing is key, isn't it? Aging is an engineering problem. It really shapes his whole approach. I mean,
Uh,
he's known as the father of biohacking, the guy behind Bulletproof Coffee, host of the Human Upgrade podcast. But it's not just theory for him. He's apparently spent, what, 2 decades?
Right.
And millions of dollars trying to optimize his own body.
It's exactly. You really need to understand where he started to get, why he's so driven. Apparently, he was dealing with some pretty serious chronic health stuff back in his mid-20s. Things you wouldn't expect. Joint pain, fatigue,
Right.
major brain fog, obesity. He even mentions getting diagnosed with arthritis in his knees when he was just 14. 14!
Yeah, that's young. He talks about this sort of wake-up call moment, being told he was at high risk for heart disease and type 2 diabetes, and realizing it wasn't just being tired. His body was like actively speeding towards those big chronic diseases he calls the 4 killers: heart disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, and cancer. That's what really kicked off this whole mission for him, understanding that his environment, things like mold exposure and just lifestyle choices, were causing real, measurable biological harm.
Right, so his journey turned into this deep dive into science-backed ways to extend not just how long we live, but our health span. The years we live feeling good without major illness. He just doesn't buy the idea that decline is guaranteed. The aim isn't just hitting 100, it's feeling sharp and capable at 80, maybe like you did at 30. That's the goal.
And Superhuman, the book itself, aims to be this practical guide, right? It mixes the science with actionable things: diet changes, light therapy, some less common compounds,
Huh.
all structured around these 7 pillars of aging he identifies. He wants to help us fight back against what he calls, and I'm quoting here, the cumulative damage caused by little insults stemming mostly from our environment.
So who is this really for? Well, it's definitely aimed at you, the learner, someone who wants the knowledge, wants it quickly, but thoroughly. Maybe you're prepping for a meeting or just trying to get up to speed on longevity, or maybe you're just feeling that slump, the fatigue, maybe some brain fog, hormones feeling off, even if you're still relatively young.
Absolutely. It's for anyone feeling kind of buried under all the health advice out there. Asprey tries to cut through that. He gives you the basics of why we age biologically, so you move past just chasing symptoms and start thinking about prevention, about the foundations.
Yeah, we're aiming for those aha moments.
Yeah.
You, reading this, probably want to know what you can actually do right now to lower future risks. Asprey's framework connects the dots. It links what you eat, how you sleep, how you handle stress, directly to those cellular failures that eventually lead to those 4 killers. It's about taking charge of your biology, not just letting age happen to you.
Okay, great setup. Let's get into the core lessons from Superhuman. We've broken them down into 5 main areas, starting right down at the cellular level. That's where he says the real battle happens.
Right. First, you have to know your enemy. Asprey points to the 4 killers: heart disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, and cancer. These are the big ones, obviously, and they're becoming more common. But his argument is crucial. These aren't just bad luck. He sees them as the end result of cellular problems that we can address proactively.
And the common link he keeps coming back to, connecting all 4 of those, it's the mitochondria. He really hammers this point home. Damage to our mitochondria, the energy factories in our cells, is what speeds up aging and massively increases our risk for those diseases. Unhealthy mitochondria mean chronic inflammation.
Yeah, think of them like tiny power plants inside every cell. But they do 2 jobs. Yes, they make ATP, the energy molecule, but they also deal with free radicals, this sort of exhaust fumes from making energy. If the mitochondria get damaged or inefficient, they start pumping out more of these damaging molecules, causing oxidative stress. It's like internal rusting. So keeping your mitochondria healthy is absolutely fundamental for longevity, according to him.
Okay, so if mitochondria are so central, what are the first steps he recommends to protect them? What can you actually do?
He suggests a few things. First, considering supplements like glucosamine. Most people know it for joints, but he says it also helps with blood sugar and, importantly, supports the mitochondrial membrane itself. Second, upping your intake of good antioxidants to help neutralize those free radicals. And third, using short periods of fasting. This kicks off a process called autophagy.
Autophagy, that's the cell's recycling system, right?
Exactly that. It literally translates to self-eating. It's the body's natural cleanup process. When you fast, your cells basically get the signal to tidy up. They break down old, damaged parts, including worn-out mitochondria, and recycle the components. This makes the whole mitochondrial network run more efficiently. It's like a biological reboot at the cellular level.
That makes a lot of sense. Keep the engine clean and the whole machine runs better. All right, so beyond the mitochondria themselves, let's talk about the types of damage that accumulate. He organizes these into the 7 pillars of aging. These are the specific failure points we need to watch out for.
Yeah, understanding these 7 pillars is really the foundation of his whole strategy. Let's walk through them. Pillar 1 is shrinking tissues. This is about our stem cells running low. Stem cells are our repair crew, replacing old cells. As we age, they become less numerous and less effective, which leads to things like muscle loss, sarcopenia, and even the brain getting smaller.
So our ability to heal and regenerate just diminishes. Okay, pillar 2.
Pillar 2 is mitochondrial mutations. We talked about mitochondrial damage, but this is about actual changes, mutations in their DNA. Mitochondria multiply quickly, and they don't have the same sophisticated DNA repair kits as our main cell nucleus. So mutations build up over time. This leads to less energy production, more fatigue, and, again, inflammation.
Right. And pillar 3 sounds a bit ominous. Zombie cells, also called senescent cells.
These are cells that have basically stopped dividing. They're damaged, but they refuse to die off properly. They just hang around like unwanted guests, spewing out this cocktail of inflammatory signals. It's called the SASP, senescence-associated secretory phenotype. This SASP fuels chronic, low-level inflammation all over the body, which is a major driver for almost all age-related diseases.
We definitely want to get rid of those zombies then. Okay, pillar 4 is quite visual. Cellular straitjackets. What's that about?
This refers to the stiffening of our connective tissues, the stuff that holds everything together, the extracellular matrix. The main culprit here is glycation. Glycation happens when excess sugar molecules in your blood basically latch onto proteins and fats, making them stiff and sticky.
Sticky, like gumming up the works.
Pretty much. These sticky compounds are called advanced glycation end products, or AGEs for short. When collagen, which is our most abundant protein, gets glycated, it loses its flexibility. Think stiff arteries, wrinkly skin, cataracts, even kidney problems. So controlling blood sugar and avoiding eating foods high in AGEs becomes really important here.
Okay, that leads nicely into pillars 5 and 6, which are both about junk building up. Pillar 5 is extracellular junk.
Right. This is waste accumulating outside the cells. Things like misfolded proteins, amyloid is a famous example that clump together. These clumps can interfere with how cells talk to each other and are heavily implicated in things like Alzheimer's.
And pillar 6 is the opposite problem, junk buildup inside cells.
Yeah. This often points to a failure in the lysosome. The lysosome is like the cell's internal garbage disposal and recycling center. If the lysosomes aren't working properly, waste products and damaged proteins pile up inside the cell, eventually clogging it up. Asprey specifically warns against eating lots of AGs from things like charred or heavily browned foods because that external junk just adds to the burden on this internal cleanup system.
Makes sense. Avoid adding more trash if the disposal system is already struggling. Okay, the final pillar, number 7.
Number 7 is telomere shortening. Telomeres are like the protective plastic caps on the ends of our shoelaces, but for our DNA strands. Every time a cell divides, those telomeres get a tiny bit shorter. It acts like a countdown timer for the cell. Once they get too short, the cell usually stops dividing and can become one of those inflammatory zombie cells we talked about.
So pillar 7 connects back to pillar 3, the zombie cells.
Exactly. And while some shortening is natural with division, Asprey emphasizes that things like chronic stress, poor sleep, and bad nutrition dramatically speed up this shortening process. So the fix here is broad. Get good sleep, manage stress effectively, get the right nutrients, all to help preserve those telomeres for as long as possible.
It's a really clear framework. Understand these 7 ways cells break down, and you know where to intervene. And if those pillars describe the damage, Asprey argues pretty strongly that food is our #1 tool for repair. Which takes us to takeaway 2. Food as the ultimate anti-aging drug.
Yeah, he's quite emphatic about this. Based on his own extensive self-experimentation, he concluded that food had the biggest, most direct impact on his inflammation, his energy levels, his mental clarity, basically the overall speed at which he felt he was aging. He sees food not just as calories, but as information, signals telling your cells to either thrive and repair or to break down.
And the main enemy, again, is inflammation. He really targets 4 specific things he found problematic: grains, gluten, glucose, and glyphosate. The 4 Gs, maybe?
Let's start with gluten. Asprey found for himself that even without having celiac disease, gluten was a major trigger for inflammation. He explains it's because gluten can trigger the release of a protein called zonulin. Zonulin basically loosens the connections between the cells lining your gut, creates leaky gut. And when that happens, bits of undigested food and toxins can slip into your bloodstream where they don't belong, setting off an immune response and widespread inflammation.
And his case against grains goes beyond just gluten, right? He
Yeah.
brings up glyphosate.
Right. That's the active ingredient in many herbicides, used heavily on crops like wheat. He points to research suggesting glyphosate can disrupt our gut bacteria, the microbiome, and might have other negative health effects systemically. So for him, cutting out grains, especially non-organic ones, is a key step to lower your body's toxic load and reduce that gut-driven inflammation.
This really hits home for the learner audience, I think. It's not just about weight loss. It's about reducing these signals that drive that cellular damage we just outlined in the 7 pillars.
Precisely. Now let's talk protein. This is interesting because he describes falling into what he calls the vegan trap. He tried a raw vegan diet, thinking it was the ultimate healthy choice, but apparently it backfired badly for him. Led to malnutrition, muscle wasting, serious cognitive problems. It made him rethink the common narrative that all animal protein is inherently bad for longevity.
So what's his recommendation instead?
The focus shifts to moderate amounts of high-quality protein, with a special emphasis on collagen. Why collagen? Well, it's the main protein in our connective tissues: skin, joints, gut lining. It has a different amino acid profile than muscle meat, particularly high in glycine and proline. These are crucial for repairing and maintaining those structural tissues.
That's an important distinction. We need amino acids for muscle, yes, but also these different ones for our structure. He does add a note of caution about too much muscle meat protein, though, because of something called the methionine pathway.
Right. Methionine is an essential amino acid very abundant in muscle meat. Some research suggests that high intake might activate certain aging pathways. So his approach is about balance. Getting enough high-quality, digestible protein for your needs, maybe supplementing with collagen for those structural benefits, but not necessarily going overboard on huge steaks constantly.
Got it. And finally, in the feed section, the role of fat. Fat has had such a bad rap for decades.
Totally. And Asprey argues that's been a huge mistake. Healthy fats are absolutely essential. They're needed for making cell membranes, producing hormones. Our steroid hormones, like testosterone and estrogen, are literally made from cholesterol and for nerve health. The brain is largely fat.
But like protein, quality matters immensely here. It's not just any fat.
Definitely not. He points out that we need saturated fats for stability. Cell membranes, particularly in the brain and liver, need a certain amount of rigidity, and saturated fats provide that. He mentions around 45%. On the other hand, monounsaturated fats, like those in olive oil, provide flexibility to the membranes. It's about the right balance for proper cell function.
And the fats to absolutely avoid.
The damaged ones. Low-quality vegetable oils like soybean or corn oil, especially when heated. Trans fats, anything deep-fried and reused oil. These oxidized damaged fats are incredibly inflammatory. They directly harm mitochondria. So choose stable, whole food fats whenever possible.
So by cleaning up the diet, removing inflammatory triggers, balancing protein, choosing good fats, he suggests you can see pretty rapid improvements.
Yeah, he claims things like lower inflammation markers, better cholesterol profiles, reduced cancer risk factors, and interestingly, significantly better sleep can happen relatively quickly, sometimes within weeks of making these changes.
Better sleep. That's a perfect segue, because even the best diet won't work optimally if your sleep is a mess. This takes us to takeaway 3, mastering sleep and harnessing light. Asprey's message here is pretty blunt. Sleep or die.
He really believes his own early health struggles were massively accelerated by poor sleep. His argument is simple. If you want to live longer and perform better at anything, sleep isn't a luxury, it's your most powerful tool.
And it's not just about feeling rested. There's deep biology at play, right? The brain detox.
Yeah, yes, the lymphatic system. This is like the brain's nighttime cleaning crew. It uses cerebrospinal fluid to flush out metabolic waste products that build up during the day. Things like amyloid proteins, the ones linked to Alzheimer's. If you consistently shortchange your deep sleep stages, you're basically skipping the brain's essential detox cycle.
And metabolically, lack of sleep is a disaster too, isn't it? Affects hunger hormones.
Oh, absolutely. Skimping on sleep, like getting less than 6 hours regularly, throws your hunger hormones completely out of whack. Ghrelin, which tells you you're hungry, goes up. Leptin, which signals fullness, goes down. It's a recipe for cravings, overeating, and metabolic dysfunction.
Okay, but then there's this interesting point he makes about quality over quantity. He mentions studies suggesting maybe 6.5 hours of really good sleep might be better for longevity than 8 hours of poor sleep.
Yeah, that's a bit provocative.
Yeah.
His take is that if your body is really healthy, low inflammation, metabolically flexible, well-managed stress, it might actually need less sleep time to fully recover. It suggests sleep duration might be partially an indicator of underlying health status. Healthier people might naturally need less.
But how do you know if your sleep is high quality? That seems key.
That's where tracking comes in. He's a big proponent of using wearable devices, like the Oura Ring he often mentions. These devices can give you data on your sleep stages. You want to see healthy amounts of deep sleep, which is crucial for physical restoration, and REM sleep for cognitive processing. He also emphasizes tracking heart rate variability, HRV.
HRV that measures stress resilience, basically.
Exactly. It reflects the balance between your sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, and your parasympathetic system, rest and digest. A higher HRV generally means you're more adaptable and less stressed. Lower HRV often correlates with poor sleep, high stress, and illness. Improving sleep quality usually improves HRV.
So track your sleep, aim for quality, manage stress. Makes sense.
Now let's flip from darkness to light. Asprey sees light not just for vision, but as energy, as information for our cells.
Right. Light is fundamental. It governs our circadian rhythms, our internal body clock.
Yeah.
It dictates the timing of hormone release, like cortisol to wake us up and melatonin to help us sleep. Messing with light exposure messes with this fundamental rhythm.
So his approach to light has two parts. Yeah, pretty straightforward. Step 1, reduce junk light. This is huge in our modern world. We're constantly bombarded with artificial blue light from screens, LEDs, fluorescent bulbs. This blue light, especially in the evening, powerfully suppresses melatonin production. It basically tells your brain it's still daytime, which disrupts sleep, messes with blood sugar regulation, increases inflammation. It's linked to a lot of problems.
Okay, so the practical steps are things like wearing those orange or red tinted glasses at night.
Exactly. Blue blocking glasses that filter out the specific disruptive wavelengths after sunset. And also adjusting your home lighting using dim, warm-colored lights or even red bulbs in the bedroom to signal to your body that it's time to wind down.
Makes sense. And step 2.
Step 2, add beneficial light. We actually need certain types of light for optimal health. He's a big advocate for red and infrared light therapy. These specific wavelengths can penetrate the skin and tissues and directly stimulate the mitochondria. There's a molecule in there called cytochrome keroside oxidase that absorbs this light. This absorption basically boosts mitochondrial energy production and helps reduce inflammation.
And natural sunlight is still important too, right?
Absolutely critical. He recommends getting about 15 to 20 minutes of direct sunlight exposure daily, if possible, ideally earlier in the day. This helps set your circadian rhythm properly and is essential for vitamin D production. So the message is, avoid the bad light, get enough of the good light, use light strategically.
Okay, managing light and sleep is crucial. Let's move on to takeaway 4, which is about connecting the systems, brain, gut, and nerves. Asprey really pushes back against the idea that cognitive decline is just a normal part of aging.
He completely rejects that. For him, maintaining mental sharpness isn't just possible, it should be the goal. Proactive steps are essential.
And he talks about specific techniques he's used to combat cognitive issues. One was neurofeedback.
Yes. Neurofeedback uses real-time EEG readings, measuring your brainwaves, to give you feedback. The idea is you can learn to consciously shift your brainwave patterns. For example, reducing excessive fast-wave activity associated with anxiety or increasing alpha waves linked to calm focus. It's like training your brain to be more efficient and less prone to stress responses that impair thinking.
And he also mentions light therapy for the brain specifically.
Right, particularly using infrared light shown on the head. The theory is that this light penetrates the skull and can improve mitochondrial function directly in brain cells. This could potentially enhance cognitive function and maybe even help with recovery from certain neurological issues. It's still an emerging area, but interesting.
Okay, now here's a connection I found really surprising in the book. Your teeth are a window to the nervous system. He talks about neurological dentistry.
It is fascinating, isn't it? The argument is that even a very slight misalignment in how your teeth come together, your bite, can put constant strain on your jaw muscles. This tension sends signals up the trigeminal nerve.
And that nerve is a big deal.
It's huge. It's one of the main sensory nerves for the face and head. If it's constantly getting distress signals from tense jaw muscles, it can keep your nervous system subtly stuck in a low-level fight-or-flight mode. The consequence? Potentially chronic release of cortisol, the stress hormone.
Which we know is bad news, long-term, drives inflammation, belly fat, disrupts sleep.
Exactly. Asprey shares his own experience where using simple bite adjustments like plastic tabs or a custom bite guard relieved this tension, improved his sleep dramatically, and lowered his stress markers. It highlights how seemingly unrelated physical issues like dental alignment can have systemic effects on stress and aging.
Wow. Okay, from the head down to the gut. Asprey says humans are walking petri dishes. Talking about our microbiome.
Yes, the trillions of bacteria, fungi, and other microbes living in and on us, mostly in our gut. He stresses that a healthy, diverse microbiome is crucial for health span. A disrupted microbiome, or dysbiosis, is increasingly linked to accelerated aging, inflammation, heart disease, mood disorders, you name it. Diversity is key.
And he points fingers at things that disrupt this diversity, like antibiotics.
He's very critical of the overuse of antibiotics. While acknowledging their lifesavers in emergencies, he argues that broad-spectrum antibiotics wipe out beneficial bacteria along with the bad guys. This can cause long-lasting, sometimes permanent damage to the gut ecosystem and its connection to the immune system, potentially accelerating aging.
He also warns about what he calls the probiotic trap. Not all probiotics are helpful.
Right. His concern is that many common store-bought probiotics contain strains of bacteria that produce histamines. For people sensitive to histamines, taking these can actually increase inflammation, cause brain fog, skin issues, digestive upset, the opposite of what you want. It underlines the need for personalization.
So if generic probiotics might be risky, what does he recommend for gut health?
The focus should be on feeding the good bacteria you already have. That means plenty of prebiotic fiber from vegetables, resistant starch things like cooled cooked potatoes or green bananas and polyphenols, the colorful compounds in plants. And maybe his number one rule, stop feeding the bad guys. Quit eating sugar and refined carbs, which tend to fuel pathogenic bacteria. He also suggests considering personalized gut testing like Viome, which analyzes the activity of your microbes, not just which ones are present. This can potentially guide more specific dietary and supplement choices tailored to your unique gut environment.
That personalized approach seems key, which brings us nicely to the final section, takeaway 5, the cutting edge. Hormones, cells, and controversial compounds. This is where things get really advanced.
Definitely. He starts with a chapter titled Fertility Longevity, arguing that maintaining youthful hormone levels is critical for staying vital. He strongly advises against just accepting age-related declines as normal. He believes we should aim for hormone levels typical of someone in their prime, say their late 20s or 30s, assuming they were healthy then.
Because declining hormones are linked to increased risk for those four killers.
Precisely. As key hormones drop testosterone in men, estrogen and progesterone in women, thyroid hormones, DHEA, the risk for heart disease, diabetes, Alzheimer's, and even some cancers goes up. Bone density decreases, muscle mass is harder to maintain, mood can suffer. So, he presents bioidentical hormone replacement therapy, HRT, when done carefully and under medical supervision, not as vanity, but as a potentially crucial tool to counteract this age-related decline and maintain overall health and resilience.
It's about mitigating systemic failure, not just aesthetics. Okay, what about virgin cells, stem cells?
Right, stem cell therapy. Stem cells are our body's master repair and regeneration cells. But their numbers and effectiveness decline significantly. With age, he calls it stem cell exhaustion.
When you have fewer active stem cells, your ability to heal from injury or just perform routine tissue maintenance decreases, which accelerates aging.
So therapies involve getting more stem cells.
Essentially, yes. Current approaches often involve harvesting adult stem cells from the patient's own fat or bone marrow, concentrating them, and then re-injecting them, either systemically or targeted to specific areas like joints. He also talks about exosomes, which are tiny signaling vesicles released by stem cells. They carry growth factors and instructions that can prompt nearby cells to repair themselves. Exosome therapy is sometimes used for more general full-body rejuvenation effects.
And he mentions a natural way to boost stem cells, too.
Yes, he circles back to fasting again. He suggests that prolonged fasting, generally over 24 hours, can trigger processes that help activate dormant stem cells and clear out damaged ones, promoting regeneration naturally. Okay, fascinating stuff. Now, finally, we get to the really edgy part. Hack your longevity like a Russian. This covers some more experimental and, let's say, controversial substances.
It does. He starts with peptides. These are short chains of amino acids, smaller than proteins, that act as very specific signaling molecules in the body. He discusses bioregulator peptides based on Russian research. These are often derived from animal organs and are claimed to help restore youthful function to the corresponding human organ, like a pineal peptide for sleep regulation or a liver peptide for detox support.
And then there are healing peptides.
Yes, things like TB500, a synthetic version of thymosin beta-4, and BPC-157. These have gained popularity, especially in athletic and biohacking circles, for their reported ability to accelerate healing of injuries, muscle, tendon, ligaments, even gut lining repair for BPC-157. They seem to act like targeted repair signals.
Then he moves on to SARM's selective androgen receptor modulators. How are these different from steroids?
The key word is selective. Unlike traditional steroids, which affect androgen receptors throughout the body, leading to side effects like prostate issues or hair loss, SARMs are designed to target androgen receptors primarily in muscle and bone tissue. The goal is to get the muscle building and fat loss benefits with fewer of the unwanted side effects. They're popular for body composition changes.
But this is where we need that big asterisk, right? These aren't exactly FDA-approved drugs for longevity.
Absolutely. It's crucial to emphasize this. SARMs and many of these peptides are largely unregulated. They haven't gone through the extensive long-term clinical trials in large human populations that standard drugs do. So while the potential benefits sound appealing, the long-term safety profile, potential side effects, and actual efficacy for anti-aging are still largely unknown. Anyone considering these needs to be aware of the risks, do thorough research, and ideally work with a very knowledgeable practitioner. This is not standard medical advice.
That's a really important caution. He also touches on a couple of other compounds.
Yes, briefly. Low-dose naltrexone, LDN. Naltrexone is an approved drug used at much higher doses for addiction. At very low doses, LDN seems to have beneficial effects on the immune system and inflammation. It's used off-label for various autoimmune and inflammatory conditions. And carbon-60, C60. This is a unique molecule, a sphere of 60 carbon atoms, often called a buckyball.
C60, that's the one from the rat study.
That's the famous one. A study found that rats given C60 dissolved in olive oil live significantly longer, nearly double their normal lifespan in some cases. The proposed mechanism is that C60 acts as an incredibly potent antioxidant, potentially working right inside the mitochondria to neutralize free radicals over and over again without getting used up. It's fascinating, but still needs much more research, especially in humans.
Exploring these cutting-edge, sometimes risky options really highlights Asprey's core philosophy, doesn't it? Trying things, gathering data on yourself.
Exactly. Every intervention, whether it's changing your diet, using red light, or experimenting with peptides, is seen as a way to influence your biology and observe the results.
So after going through all these areas, cellular damage, food, sleep, light, hormones, the cutting edge, what's the big picture message from Superhuman?
I think the core message is really one of agency. Aging isn't something you just have to passively accept. Asprey argues that it's a collection of biological processes that we can understand and influence. He truly believes we have the knowledge and tools available now, or emerging, to actually gain energy and vitality as we get older, not just manage decline.
It's about taking control, focusing on that internal environment, mitochondria, gut, hormones, and seeing that reflected externally.
That's it precisely. The idea is that by optimizing your internal biology, you manifest youthfulness on the outside, better skin, more energy, sharper thinking, resilience. It starts from within.
And he does give that final push, doesn't he? Encouraging people to start now, but maybe not necessarily with the most extreme hacks first.
Right. The motivational nudge is definitely there. But he also grounds it. The foundational work, fixing your diet, mastering sleep, managing stress, reducing your toxic load, that's the stuff that makes the more advanced, expensive, or experimental therapies actually effective. You need a solid foundation.
So the ultimate takeaway seems to be, challenge the assumption that decline is inevitable. Question what normal aging really means. If you can target those 7 pillars of damage with the tools available, from lifestyle changes to potentially more advanced interventions down the line, how much better could you feel? How much more capable could you be?
Yeah, it's a call to take ownership, to become the CEO of your own health, as some say.
Oh, yeah.
Start learning, start experimenting safely, and see what's possible for your own biology.
That's today's breakdown. While this discussion cannot replace the book's full text, it can offer a glimpse into its teachings. I hope you found this discussion helpful, and I look forward to sharing more. Let me know what book next you want to discuss.